Grinkowicz to be Commander, United States European Command, and Supreme Allied Commander, Europe. I welcome our nominees and their families, and I thank them for their continued willingness to serve our nation. I want to begin my remarks by recognizing the remarkable skill, courage, and professionalism displayed by the men and women of our military and intelligence communities who participated in Operation Midnight Hammer over the weekend. President Trump was right to authorize the mission to strike Iran's nuclear facilities and address this long-standing threat to the United States. Our Commander-in-Chief gave Ayatollah Khamenei every chance to negotiate peacefully. The Iranian leader, however, rejected our presence in treaties. He instead chose to continue his pursuit of a nuclear weapon and support of terrorism rather than a peaceful resolution that would have benefited the Iranian people. To be clear, the situation the Iranian regime finds itself in today is entirely of its own making. I know members of this committee will have questions about Operation Midnight Hammer and the administration's Iran policy. I do remind my colleagues there will be a classified briefing for all senators later today with senior administration officials to address many of these questions. If confirmed, Admiral Cooper will assume command of CENTCOM in the midst of a seismic shift across the Middle East. These changes were precipitated by Hamas's barbaric attack against Israel on October 7, 2023. Since then, Iran's conventional military capabilities have been severely degraded. Hezbollah's leadership has been decimated, and Hamas has been crushed. Iran's longtime political ally in the region, Syria's Bashar Assad, is out of power and in exile. Iran and its terrorist allies are weaker than they have been in decades, but the job is not done. We must do all we can to support the defense of Israel and ensure that American forces in the region have what they need. I hope to hear Admiral Cooper's unclassified assessment of recent developments and his description of the force posture and force protection requirements CENTCOM needs in order to contend with Iran, its proxies, and other threats emanating from the region. Lastly, we must not lose sight of the continuing threat posed by radical Islamist terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Although weakened, ISIS and Al-Qaeda remain intent on killing Americans. I'm interested in Admiral Cooper's testimony about the current capabilities of terrorist groups in the region and what CENTCOM's counterterrorism strategy should be in order to counter this threat. Now, as to General Grinkowicz, if confirmed, he will take command of EUCOM and NATO at a time of war and great uncertainty. Vladimir Putin continues to remind the West that Russia remains a determined enemy, one which is willing to use force to vindicate long-held grievances and to violate international law. The Russian dictator's invasion of Ukraine has rained death and destruction upon a democratic people and serves as a warning to the world that the military threat from Russia is as relevant today as it ever has been. Indeed, earlier this month, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte warned that, quote, Russia could be ready to use military force against NATO within 5 years, unquote. He added that Putin's war economy produces more munitions in 3 months than the whole of NATO produces in a year. Of course, Russia is not just a danger to our NATO allies. Russia also directly threatens the homeland. Its nuclear arsenal is sized and postured to destroy the United States. The members of this committee are keen to hear General Grinkowicz's views of the threat Russia poses, as well as his plans to counter it. The United States faces a daunting challenge. We must deter and, if necessary, defeat 2 nuclear peer adversaries. That task highlights the important role allies play in our security. President Trump deserves considerable credit for dramatically increasing allied burden sharing, which has helped to renew NATO's purpose. NATO is now actively debating a commitment for members to spend 5% of their GDP on defense. Amid this encouraging development, there are some in the Pentagon that believe the U.S. must draw down our military presence in Europe. This thinking bewilders most of us on this committee, given Russia's aggression and the renewed willingness of allies to share our collective defense burden. Our presence in Europe helps deter Russia. It also has additional benefits, including enabling and assisting our military operations in the CENTCOM and AFRICOM areas of operation. That support is vital, especially now as tensions once again rise in the Middle East. With that, I look forward to our hearing today, and I turn to my colleague and friend, Ranking Member Reed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Admiral Cooper, General Greenwich. Congratulations on your nominations, and thank you for stepping forward to continue your long careers of service. And I particularly extend my appreciation to your families who were with you every step of the way and are one of the reasons I think you're here today before us. Gentlemen, as you are well aware, this is a very dangerous moment. On Saturday, the President ordered airstrikes on several nuclear facilities deep within Iran. More than 100 American aircraft and thousands of service members executed a remarkable global operation that significantly damaged Iran's nuclear infrastructure, although we still await the final battle damage assessment. And I salute the military personnel who carried out this mission with incredible skill and bravery. It is imperative that we prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. However, I am concerned about the consequences of this attack. Iran has already retaliated by launching ballistic missiles at our bases in Qatar and Iraq, threatening tens of thousands of American troops. Fortunately, these strikes were intercepted, but we must recognize the grave risk of igniting a broader regional war. And our forces in the region must continue to brace for additional attacks. And indeed, we've seen additional attacks between Israel and Iran. I urge the Trump administration to pursue diplomacy and international engagement to prevent further violence. Admiral Cooper, I trust that you understand the challenging situation within which you have been nominated to lead CENTCOM. In this regard, your distinguished record of service is encouraging. Your career as a surface warfare officer with extensive command experience in the Middle East, including your current position as Deputy CENTCOM Commander and previous command of U.S. Fifth Fleet, should serve you well. If confirmed as CENTCOM Commander, you will need to not only address the Iran crisis, but also continue to navigate the difficult environment surrounding Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza, the ever-present Houthi threat in Yemen, and the potential resurgence of ISIS in Syria and Iraq, all while the administration has announced significant force reduction in these areas. I'd like to know how you would address each of these threats and how U.S. military operations can align with Iranian nuclear negotiations, and any plans you have to help build the capacity of our regional partners, such as the Lebanese armed forces. Even as we navigate these conflicts in the Middle East, the security environment in Europe remains fraught. At this moment, NATO leaders are gathering in Brussels to address a number of urgent issues, including the war in Ukraine and Russia's increasingly aggressive posture towards the West. And I'm hopeful President Trump will take this opportunity to clearly express America's solidarity with our NATO allies. General Greenwich, you have been nominated to command European Command, or EUCOM. For the past 3 years, EUCOM has served as the backbone of the international effort to support Ukraine, enabling the Ukrainians to succeed on the battlefield while sending an unmistakable message to America's adversaries around the globe. However, in recent months, the position in the United States seems to have reversed, with the Trump administration challenging our allies while attempting to negotiate directly with Vladimir Putin. I would point out that Putin has suffered immense cost in Ukraine and has turned to Iran and North Korea to help sustain his war. In contrast, the Ukrainian military continues to fight bravely and demonstrate stunning battlefield innovations, such as its recent drone attacks deep within Russian territory. I would argue that there is never a time to appease Putin, but it certainly is not now. I'm also concerned by the administration's plan to slash funding and reduce U.S. force presence in EUCOM and their failure to request new funding for assistance to Ukraine. These decisions send an encouraging message to Russia. Indeed, I think it's imperative that we provide a significant supplemental emergency appropriations to Ukraine to continue the fight and send a very strong signal to Putin that we're not giving up. General Grinovich, I would appreciate your assessment of the war in Ukraine and your views on future U.S. military activities and investments needed in the EUCOM area of responsibility to uphold our steadfast commitment to collective defense and American security. Gentlemen, if confirmed, you will lead America's forward deployed forces at a momentous time. I'm grateful for your willingness to step forward and meet this challenge. Thank you, and I look forward to your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Reid. Now we will take opening statements, no longer than 5 minutes, if you don't mind, gentlemen. We'll begin with you, Admiral Cooper. Your opening statement, sir.
Well, good morning, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reid, and distinguished members of this committee. As the proud son of a career Army officer and Vietnam veteran and the grandson of a World War II veteran in the Pacific, I'm honored and I'm humbled by the opportunity to appear before you today. I would first like to thank the President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for their faith, trust, and confidence in nominating me to serve as the next commander of U.S. Central Command. I'm also honored to join today with Lieutenant General Alexis Grinkovich. We all know him by his call sign of Grinch. Having served alongside of him for the last 4 years in very challenging times, he is the very best our nation has to offer. It's a wonderful privilege to be a beam of him today. I'm joined today by my wife, Susan, my high school sweetheart from Montgomery, Alabama, and the anchor of our family. She was there when my parents signed a waiver so that I could attend the Naval Academy at the age of 17. As I prepare to mark 4 decades wearing the cloth of the nation next week, I know that none of it would have been possible without Susan's boundless love, not only for our family, but to thousands of military spouses around the world. She truly has been my greatest source of strength throughout this amazing journey. Also with us today are our daughter Katie, a cardiovascular ICU nurse in Jacksonville, Florida, and Andrew, a fellow nurse and Marine veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan. Our son Bradford, a professional welder, is working on a U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer today in Mayport, Florida, playing his role in keeping our Navy fit to fight. He and his wife Shelby are unable to be here today as they prepare for the imminent arrival of grandchild number 3, a future member of the U.S. Naval Academy class of 2047. Sorry, Senator Reid. Our grandchildren, Avery and Charlie, also couldn't be here today, but they remain 2 of our life's absolute greatest joys. I'm also grateful for the support of my brothers and sisters-in-law who are here today. As a career Navy surface warfare officer, I have spent my adult life on Navy ships, deploying all around the world, including a tour on the ground in Afghanistan, and with family moves to Germany, Korea, Japan, and most recently Bahrain. Supporting the Coopers has truly been a team sport, and I'm deeply thankful for their love these many years. My greatest inspiration for continued service has come from those I've had the privilege to lead and serve alongside in the Joint Force. U.S. forces in the Middle East are laser-focused today on warfighting, lethality, and their readiness, and they are performing superbly. I honor them and their families for the sacrifices they continue to make for the nation. I would like to specifically acknowledge the exquisite execution by the Joint Force of an incredibly complex mission in Iran this past weekend and successful defense of Al Udeid Air Base just yesterday. I just could not be prouder, and I know that this committee shares in that same pride. Over the past 4 years, I've had the privilege of living in and leading in the Central Command area of responsibility. That time has given me a front row seat to both the volatility and the promise of the Middle East. It's also reinforced a clear-eyed understanding. The Middle East is incredibly dynamic today. There are challenges for sure, but also real strategic opportunities. If confirmed, I will work with this committee to shape outcomes that advance our national interests. I would like to acknowledge and thank the current commander of U.S. Central Command, General Eric Kurilla, his wife and family for their lifetime of service to our country. Our nation and our troops in the Middle East have been blessed to have General Kurilla at the helm of Central Command for the last 39 months. Finally, I would like to thank this committee for your steadfast support and commitment to the oversight that makes our force stronger. If confirmed, I pledge to maintain a transparent and fully responsive relationship with this committee. I look forward to your questions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Admiral Cooper, and thank you for your kind words about General Kurilla. I think they're shared by most of us here behind the dais. Before I recognize